especially, you know, if you're carrying a license to carry. So I'm going to give you your host's perspective as to what to do from my own common sense and the advice given to me by law enforcement throughout the years. But first I'm going to read the bullet lines from the training manual and then overlay that with my experience. And after that, I'll have Attorney Rick Dodd and Officer Randy Dixon go over the legal aspects of the traffic stop so that if, God forbid, you are stopped, you'll know how to handle yourself properly. Now, it's very easy for a traffic stop to go bad, especially if you or the officer are having a bad day. Okay, so let me read these bullet points and then we'll get into this here. Traffic stops. First of all, you want to follow instructions. Pull over to as safe a place as you can find. Roll down your window for communication. Keep your hands on top of the steering wheel as much as possible. Turn on the dome light if necessary. Don't make quick movements or look like you're hiding stuff, particularly as the officer approaches. Be prepared to properly display your driver's license and license to carry if it's applicable. Okay, so those are the bullet points that we train, and of course we expand upon that, and that's what I'm going to do right now. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, what your host does if, in the rare occasion, they catch me and pull me over. Okay. Now, I am very favorable to law enforcement, and I understand that at any moment something can go wrong, and an officer coming up to a traffic stop never knows when it's going to go down. So trying to put the officer at ease as much as possible on a traffic stop, I'm going to do the basic courtesies that I would expect done to me if I was a law enforcement officer. So if I get pulled over, I'm not going to drive for miles and miles and miles before I pull over just because. I'll do that if there's no place to safely pull over. But if there's a place pretty quick, I'm going to pull over. I'm going to signal, pull over. Once I pull over, the first thing I'm doing is I'm shutting the car off after I've rolled down the windows, and if it's dark out, turn the dome light on. So I'm pulling over, the windows are down, in case they're tinted or you can't see, they're fogged, whatever, okay? I want the officer, as he approaches the car, to be able to see in all the time what's going on. The dome light's on if it's dark. The engine is off. I take my keys and I put them on the dashboard. And then I rest my wrists on top of the steering wheel with my fingers extended, and I sit in a manner that is relaxed because I'm not worried about it. I got no contraband, so I'm not worried about it. Okay, so the officer starts coming up, and this is what I do. As the officer approaches, I smile and say, "Officer, how are you? I want you to know that I am a license to carry holder, and I do have the weapon on me at this time, and it is located in such and such a place, and my wallet is in my left rear pocket. What would you like me to do, sir?" And they look at me and they go, "Huh?" It's like I caught them off guard. They go, "Okay, okay. Where's the gun?" I said, "It's right there." I said, "It's fine. Just don't go to it. Let me see your license and registration, whatever." So I prepped him, let him know, because I'm going to tell you something. If you have a license to carry and you're pulled over, the officer reads your plates. They know who owns the car, but they don't know who's driving the car. Once they get your driver's license and they call it in, they're going to know whether or not you got a license to carry or not. And let me be very clear on something when it comes to license to carry. The law specifically states if you're a license to carry holder and you do not have the weapon on you at the time, you're not required to tell the officer that you're a license to carry holder. That's the law. Now, for the common sense reality of it is, I don't care if you got the gun on you or not. Tell the officer you're licensed to carry holder and that you either have the gun on you or you don't have the gun on you, because he's going to find out or she's going to find out, and if they find out and you didn't tell them, they're going to be a little PO'd, okay? Because it's like, why didn't you tell me? And then you're going to go, well, because the law specifically states if I don't have the gun on me, and then you're going to get a traffic ticket +1, okay? So that's the way I would do it if I was stopped by a police officer. Now, what I'd like to do next is to get Officer Randy Dixon on to say what him as a law enforcement officer would like in return, if he concurs with what I just said, or if there's something I forgot. So, Randy, why don't you tell us your aspect of it if you're pulling somebody over, and then we're going to get Super Attorney Rick Dodd's legal aspects of it as well.
Basically, what you said to do is exactly what we would like people to do. Now, I'll tell you right now, most of the people don't take the time to turn the vehicle off. They don't put their keys up, and they don't keep their hands where they can be seen. You know, you have to understand that when a police officer stops a car, 99.9% of the time, he has no clue who's driving that car. The car may be registered to someone out of Temple, but it may be driven by someone out of Houston. When an officer walks up to the car, number one, his safety factor is going to kick in. He is going to consider himself, every stop he considers is a dangerous stop. That doesn't mean every stop is going to be a dangerous stop, but it only takes a flash of a second for someone's life to go terribly, terribly wrong. So hypothetically, what we like to do, and what I like to see is, if you're driving down the highway, let's say that you're stopped by the police officer, exactly what you said to do is what we would hope you do. Pull over safely to the right, never to the left. Give the officer a chance to get up to your car. Listen to what he has to say. You know, in the 43 years I've been doing this business, and 17 of it as a chief, I told my officers, I said, use your 7-step approach. If you follow a 7-step approach every time as a habit, then you're not going to fall into any kind of situation that's going to basically turn bad unless there is a criminal involved. And 99.9% of the people that you stop are going to be good, honest citizens who just made a mistake. And sometimes they don't even know what the mistake they made was. We tell them, I tell young officers, I said, if you're going to stop somebody, you're going to work traffic, and you pull somebody over, number one, nobody wants to be pulled over by the police. I'm telling you right now. I was stopped in three different times in one day going to Houston here about 2 months ago. So I understand nobody wants to get stopped. But we do get stopped, and people are going to get stopped. But if an officer walks up to you, the first thing hopefully he's going to identify himself. He's going to who he is. And then he's going to ask for your DL. Now here's where a lot of people get in trouble. They want to start arguing right off the bat before they ever hand the DL to the officer. Folks, that's the wrong thing to do. Hand the DL, the insurance, to the officer, because he's going to demand that first. That's his safety factor. If something goes wrong, he's got the DL in his hand. He's got the identification in his hand. And then once that officer gets that driver's license and that insurance card, and by the way, what I'd also recommend is, if you have a license to carry, you hand that to him at the same time that you hand him the driver's license. Take it out, give it to him. That way it takes the guesswork out right there. And he may ask you, he said, do you have a weapon in the vehicle? If he does, just be honest, tell him. And even if you're not a licensed to carry, and he asks you if you have a weapon, don't lie to him. Just tell him, yes, I've got a weapon in the car. There's certain circumstances where that's totally legal to do that. And then once he gets that driver's license, he makes contact with you. He or she knows who they're talking to. They're going to hopefully explain to you why you were stopped. Now, you may not agree with them. You may think you did something, but the side of the street is not where to hold court. That's not where the jury is. The jury is when you get people like Mr. Dodd or someone like that to go to court with you, and you let a judge decide. An officer is just doing his job by enforcing the law. He is not the judge and jury. But you got to go along with what he has to say, because the side of the street is not the place to argue, folks. And when you argue, it just makes situations go bad. Now, the next thing the officer is going to do, he's going to tell you, folks, I'm going to give you a warning. I'm going to give you a citation. He does what he's going to do. He explains it to you. And some people say, well, I'm not going to sign the citation. Well, folks, there's a couple of ways to look at that. When you sign a citation, you're not saying you're guilty. All you're doing is saying you'll promise to take care of it one way or the other, either by contacting the court itself, a lawyer to set up a court for you. But you, in most cases, you are required to sign that citation, or you could be arrested for that. We would hope not. We would hope we would never progress to that. Then once that's done, the officer is going to leave, and he's not going to leave till you leave if he's a good officer. And he's not going to tell you, well, have a nice day, because once you've already been stopped, your day's been ruined anyway. But folks, the thing is, an officer doesn't know what he's walking up to. Let me give you a quick example of that. In the late 80s, I was working traffic division for Temple, and I stopped a vehicle speeding down one of the streets in Temple. A fairly heavy speed. A lady and a man were in it. Wrote the citation for speeding, didn't think anything about it. Went home from the end of my shift at 11 o'clock that night. 3 o'clock that morning, those same two individuals were caught burglarizing a auto shop in Temple, or a dealership in Temple, and they had an Israeli Arms 44 caliber rifle, a pistol with them. That was in the car when I stopped that car. They could have shot me. They could have done anything they wanted to. But I didn't give them the chance to because I conducted my business. I got back and left. Folks, just do what the officer says on the street. You may not like it. You may not agree with it. But once again, that's not the place you argue.
Those are all fantastic points. So stand by, Randy. We're going to have Super Attorney Rick Dodd here. Rick, how's it going? Good to have you back on the show.
Oh, it's good to be here.
It's like a tag team, left, right, 1-2 punch with you and Ross. You just come in here. If one's not doing it, the other's doing it. But no matter what happens, we're giving great information out here.
Ross is a good guy. I always enjoy listening to him.
Well, Rick, what we've got here is my interpretation. I read what it says in the book. I told you how I do things. Randy here told everybody how he would like it done on the street. But I've got some questions, and I know you're going to have a whole bunch of information here, but I'm talking probable cause. What is it? Is there any violation of rights? What are they? How do you respond if rights are violated? Dark roads, women in cars, what to do, guns, where they're located, what to do, so on and so forth. So with this big gamut of information, with your expertise, why don't you lay on the line, tell everybody out there listening your aspects, legal aspects of how this all works.
Well, probable cause for a stop. I mean, basically, you have a situation where there's a definition. It's such a wide open definition that the courts have said there's really no definition. But if there are facts sufficient to warrant a man a reasonable caution in the belief that an offense is being committed, that is probable cause.
That's wide open.
That's wide open. That's right.
That's why I like the law, how black and white it is. I can read it and make total sense of it. Not.
But basically, I believe I agree with everything you and Officer Dixon has said here. Absolutely. The problem comes in is when maybe the officer is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, and that happens. That happens quite a bit. Violation of rights. A violation of rights, of course, the rights are given to us by our Constitution, and the Fourth Amendment says that we should be free from unreasonable search and seizures. We should be free from being unreasonably detained. So there's a lot of case law out there about what is unreasonable as far as being detained. For instance, when you have an unreasonable search and seizure, there may be probable cause to do a search, but those searches may be limited to certain areas of the vehicle where perhaps what your probable cause might be found. For instance, if you were looking for an illegal alien from Russia, you wouldn't have the right to go into the glove pocket. Maybe the trunk. But, a lot of the searches are being done for drugs, and of course they can be hidden anywhere, so that would allow the officer to search in many places.
I want to make one comment, though. Officer Dixon and I were talking about this before we went on air. In no way, shape, or form do I promote that you should be saying, hey, you're violating my rights. No, absolutely not. If you're pulled over, you obey what the law officer says. If you got a problem or an issue, you take it up after that. Do not elevate the situation if you think rights are violated, because it goes bad. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, and a great example of it going bad is the Sandra Bland case. And we've heard a lot about the Sandra Bland case, and it went bad on both ends, in my opinion. You have a situation where you have a DPS officer who's supposed to be trained to de-escalate problems. So if you get into a situation and the officer is not de-escalating the problem, you better start doing it. Right. Because things are going to go bad. Unfortunately for Miss Bland, she didn't de-escalate the problem, nor did the officer. What happened on that is that was in July the 10th of 2015. And, backing up a little bit, the officer, when he gets out of a car, he is in harm's way. And the fact is, in the 10-year period before 2000, 93 law officers were killed in the United States during traffic stops or pursuits.
That's a lot. I mean,
that's right. In 1998 alone, there were 9 killed, but what astounded me was there were 6,248 assaulted. Of course, I don't know how bad the assaults were, but I'm sure some of those were gunshot wounds and hit on the head and things of that nature. So they have to be on the defense. But again, they're supposed to be trained. So when the officer approaches Miss Bland, she's smoking a cigarette. He tells her to put the cigarette out. Okay, instead of complying with that simple request, she says, well, I know my rights. I don't have to put the cigarette out. I'm in my car. Well, the officer should have backed off and said, okay, because she was right. She didn't have to put the cigarette out. But instead it upset him because it was a challenge to his authority. So then he says, well, step out of the car. And Miss Bland says, well, I don't have to get out of my car. You don't have the right to tell me to get out of the car. Well, he did have the right to tell her to get out of the car if he had a reason for her to get out of the car, which he could have easily articulated. Ma'am, I want you to get out of the car because I'm afraid that you have a weapon inside, or you're being belligerent. I'm afraid you might hurt me. But no, he doesn't do that. He says, instead, he pulls out his taser. And you know, a taser is a weapon. And he clearly violated her constitutional rights when he pointed that taser at her and told her to get out of that car or I'm going to jerk you out of that car.
If I can interject,
sure.
One thing here is don't get out of the car till you are told to get out of the car, though. Too many times people will jump out of the car and try to run back to the officer. Never do that because that puts the officer in a bad situation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, many years ago we were taught to get out of the car, but not anymore.
Not anymore.
Well, I mean, plus it's just a traffic hazard,
right.
Frankly. Yeah. So anyway, if he had said, well, you need to step out of the car because I need to search your car, then she should have gotten out of the car. So here's a situation where he was wrong and she was right. But did that make her safe?
No.
No. So then...
being legal isn't always healthy, I guess.
That's true. And, you know, he may have thought he had probable cause to search her car. He may have thought he had probable cause to tell her to get out. But he needed to articulate it.
I want to make something clear, too. We are not picking on law enforcement. We are utilizing a situation that happened. You cannot deny it. And so we're studying it on both sides so that we can learn and be sure not to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, again, I'm in favor of the law enforcement, and I understand their situation. But again, here is someone who is trained that didn't de-escalate. He should have called for backup. That I think his training would have called for backup in that situation. So, anyway, as it goes along, Miss Bland, she says, I refuse to talk to you other than to identify myself. Guess what? She's right about that. But unfortunately, the officer was further upset about that response. And again, his choice would have been to have called for backup and said, let's try to get this de-escalated, get a couple officers in there where he's not in danger, where he doesn't have any real issues of him being in danger, and see what unfolds. So instead, he says, I'm giving you a lawful order. Now, I know I'm nitpicking here, but was that a lawful order to put out a cigarette or get out of the car? In either case, it was not really a lawful order. He was mistaken about that. So what happened after that? He did then call for backup after he told her he was going to yank her out of there. So he really couldn't do that either unless she was posing a threat to his welfare or safety, which at that time I don't think the cigarette was posing a big problem for him. But he didn't see it that way. So she said, don't touch me. I'm not under arrest. To which he replied, well, you are under arrest. Well, for what? I mean, I don't know what she would have been under arrest for because he did not articulate that. Instead, he turned to the radio. That's when he called for backup. And does he have an obligation to tell her why she's under arrest? Well, yes, he needs to do that. Now, I don't know about an obligation, but I think a reasonable obligation to put things at ease and overcome this conflict. He needs to tell her why she might be under arrest. We're not real sure why she would have been under arrest, except she didn't put out her cigarette and didn't dig it out of the car, which neither one of those were really legal for her to have to do. So she then asked, or asserts her right, I guess is a better way of putting it, to use her cell phone to record this conversation. Does she have that right? Well, yes, she does. But again, he perceives this as a threat to his authority. And by golly, he is the authority on the scene, according to himself, not according to the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. And that's where I got a problem with the whole thing, because I'm a real believer in the Constitution.
Okay, we're going along here. Let me take a quick break. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. It's June 17th. We're talking with Super Attorney Rick Dodd. We have Officer Randy Dixon here. We're talking about traffic stops, and we're talking about how it can go bad very quickly if personalities are bad or ego states are out of whack. So this is a great learning process.
Yeah, it really tells us what not to do.
It's exactly, that's why we're doing it, to tell us what not to do. So let's take a quick 1-minute break, and when we come back, we'll continue it up. You good? Everybody good?
I'm good. Yeah. And I want to make a comment about this. You hit it right. Too many times officers let their egos get in the way of good common sense, and I think that needs to be pointed out. Sure. So I want to say that.
Yeah, but on the other side of it, you got the citizen who's pushing his rights when, just shut up, man.
Right.
Get through the traffic stop. You were speeding or
About
whatever.
Miss Bland, she was a civil rights worker. I don't know if you knew that.
No, but I gotta.
That's pretty, yeah.
Okay, I gotta cut that.
So that's cut what now?
Well, because this is, let's see it, 39.
But she was.
It was almost like it was a setup in a way.
Yeah.
Now the end result was no way she intended to have it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program, June 10th, 2017. If you want to call and put your 2 cents in, it's 697-6633. That's 254-697-6633. We're here again with Super Attorney Rick Dodd and Officer Randy Dixon. Hey, Rick, tell everybody, first of all, how they can get a hold of you real quick.
Oh, yeah, you can check us out on respectforyou.com. You can give us a call at 697-4965, or just drive down Houston Street and you'll see us on the right.
Very good. Okay, give us a quick recap of who we're talking about and what we're doing for those who are just tuning in.
Yeah, we were just talking about the Sandra Bland case, which is a classic example of what not to do. And Chief Dixon here had just talked about what officers normally do, and this is the example of what an officer should have done but didn't do, and that is to de-escalate a problem that he perceives. Instead, he escalates it, because clearly Miss Bland was escalating it insofar as asserting her rights. And she had these rights, certainly, but Chief Dixon had made the point that this is not the place to hold court, that the place to hold court would have been later.
Yeah, what were you saying on that, Officer Dixon?
One of the things that I think, especially in this case here, I don't care whether you're a state trooper, whether you're a city policeman, whether you're a deputy sheriff, you know, it's incumbent upon whoever the supervisors are to know their officers. And sometimes officers let their egos go unchecked. You know, just because we carry a badge on our chest, that doesn't make you the authoritarian to do things of what you want to do at will. You know, when I look for hire a policeman, I look for someone that had common sense, and I think that's what this boils down to. Stress is going to be there, but you have to know how to handle that stress. And I think, as Mr. Dodd said, that you know there's times you have to step back and you've got to think. Call somebody else. Call somebody to let you help mitigate if the officer feels angry. And I'll tell you something citizens can do too. And this I highly urge this. If they feel out there on the street that it's getting out of hand, ask that officer to call. May I speak to your supervisor? Would you have him come to the scene? But don't argue. Don't get into it. You know, have somebody else come. It protects both of you. And the other thing is, most of the departments now are wearing body cams. And those body cams are not only for the protection of the officer, but they're for the protection of the citizen too. It would take a foolish officer, very foolish officer, to lose his control when he's on camera. And I'm sorry, I just want to throw that in.
I'm going to make one comment. This is a great example of the ego states, parent, adult, child. And if we're not speaking adult to each other, we have potential conflict. Because if I'm acting parental to you, you'll probably act childlike back, or vice versa. And that's just a beautiful recipe for conflict. So that's what we teach in our course as well. I don't know, Rick, if you're into that kind of stuff. Maybe we can do that for another show, talk about our ego states.
Sure.
De-escalation, nonviolent dispute resolution. But anyway, go on with what you're doing here.
Well, what happened after the stop and after some of the exchanges was the officer clearly was upset, and then he said, "Get out of the car or I will light you up." And he's talking about the taser that he had pointed at her. And again, this is a dangerous situation. I mean, if he had actually tased her in the face, she could have had brain damage, certainly could have had nerve damage to any of her facial muscles. This was a violent threat to her, and clearly illegal and a violation of her Fourth Amendment rights. He had no business doing that. So many things went wrong here, and of course, ultimately, Miss Bland was put in jail, where 3 days later she apparently committed suicide. So it was just horrible, an incredibly horrible situation.
From a basic traffic stop, it escalates to that. So that's why it is so important that we understand how things work on both sides of the badge. Okay? And just common sense. What else you got there, Rick, concerning that?
Well, you mentioned something, how do you respond if your rights are violated? Well, I would always ask, are we being recorded? And hopefully you are being recorded. And if your rights are being violated and you're being recorded, then you need to keep your mouth shut and let those violations occur, because if something does happen later down the road, then the jury, or the judge actually, is going to throw the case out because of those violations. A lot of people think that they have to let the officer search their car. Well, there are some differences in the Fourth Amendment as far as a car and a home. For instance, the Supreme Court of the United States allows more latitude for police officers to search your car. And you see, this goes along with whether you believe your rights were violated or not. Maybe they weren't being violated. You just might think they're being violated. So you need to be careful with what you think.
Well, I want to be open here. If an officer asks me, "Can I search your car?" my answer is going to be respectfully, sir, no.
I agree.
Now, if he tells me, "Get out of the car, I'm going to search your car," I'm going to say, "Yes, sir," because I'm not going to do it there. But
just be careful that you're not saying yes, sir, to searching the car, that you are, "Yes, sir, I'm getting out of the car."
Well, I'm going to make it very clear that I'm going to comply, because I'm not going to argue with the guy on the road. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to follow his orders. But I'm going to, since I know my rights and I know I got no junk in the car and everything I've got is legal, there is no reason for him to inspect it. So I'm going to say, respectfully, officer, no, I don't authorize a search. But then at that point, he demands me to get out. Like this situation happened, I'm not going to escalate it. I'm going to follow the rules, and I'll take care of it later.
Sure, absolutely. That is my point. You take care of it later. I mean, there are certain situations, because a car is movable, because a car is subject to certain restrictions, like you have to license it, you have to inspect it. The Supreme Court of the United States said a car has less constitutional rights with regard to search and seizure than a house does. For instance, if an officer has probable cause, and probable cause can come through open sight, if he sees contraband on the front seat or a vehicle, and of course sight is one of our senses, but so is smell. Probable cause can happen if they smell certain chemicals that officers are trained to smell, that is commonly used to make certain drugs like methamphetamine, or the smell of marijuana. That might give them probable cause to do a search. If a reasonable informant, gosh, what do they call them? Somebody who's
snitch,
confidential informant.
Well, confidential, but the informant has to have some credibility.
Right.
There you go. A credible informant has given them information about something, then that might give them reasonable cause to stop a certain car and do a certain search. Whereas they would have to get a warrant to do that for a house. The rule is if they could have gotten a warrant, had they gone to the magistrate, then it would be a reasonable search for the car.
Also might throw in there, if a person is obviously sticking stuff underneath the seat or reaching under a seat, most officers are going to search that for their own safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that, in my opinion, that's reasonable, because you're making these erratic movements. That's why as soon as the lights flash, the dome light's on, I want him to see me.
Well, that's reasonable to most people, but if you're in a situation in that car where you are doing that and you are becoming a little bit of conflict with officers. They may not feel it's reasonable. My opinion, if somebody's sticking something under a seat or reaching down under a seat, for my own safety, so I can go home and see my kids, I'm gonna search that car.
Okay, look, because we're limited on time, we got about 2-3 minutes max here. I want to ask one last question here. I had this asked me a lot. If you're a passenger in the vehicle and the officer comes up, obviously he's talking to the driver, but what if there's a license to carry in the vehicle? Does the license to carry in the vehicle have to declare? I know what the answer is, but I want you to say it. Or if there's something I'm missing here. So, passenger in the car, traffic stop, do you have to announce that you're licensed to carry?
In my opinion, no.
That's my opinion, but I think it'd be a good idea to, because there is a gun in the car, and the officer should be aware of that.
The person should do it, but are they mandated to do it? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they're not mandated to do it, but sometimes it's a good opinion. I just say, I guess you're gonna have to call that shot on your own on that particular one. Okay, let's wrap this up, guys. Give me a final overview of what we've just done here. Any final comments before we close this up?
My only comment I have is just try to make sure that you do everything to keep the officer from becoming alarmed. Difference daytime, nighttime. Nighttime it's going to be more on edge. You're going to have lights on your eyes, and there's reasons for that. Just don't do anything that's going to bring any undue attention to yourself on a traffic stop.
That's right. I was stopped one night out on the Long Bridge, and the stated reason was he couldn't see my front license plate. Well, it was dark. My lights were on. But instead of me, calling him certain names for stopping me, I said, well, sir, why don't you go up with your flashlight and take a look at the front, please? He did, and sir then came around and apologized and left.
Very good, very good. Rick, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, please.
At respectforyou.com. If you look us up, you can read all about us. You can go to justice@respectforyou with an email. You can give us a call, 1-800-460-0606 or 1-888-MESO-FIRM, or just meet us on the street. Hey, we're around. Craig Brown in the office, he's involved in a lot of the local businesses as far as the community goes. And we do a lot of things around the community to help out and do what we can. So we're around.
All right, stand by for a second. Joel, what we're going to do is going to take a long break after this. And ladies and gentlemen, the phone number here is 254-697-6633. If I can keep Attorney Rick Dodd here shackled for a few minutes, maybe we'll get a call in. Same with Officer Dixon. So if you've got a question, you can call up in the next couple minutes, and we'll see if we can't get an answer for you. But Joel, let's take a break. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, everybody, to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. Again, it's June 10th, 2017. I still have Super Attorney Rick Dodd to my left and Officer Randy Dixon to the right. And the phone number here is 254-697-6633 if you've got a last-minute question. But right now, we're going to go over things that are coming up or have been done, and lots of things going on. Last night was our most recent round-robin competition, and man, we had a lot of people. It was a lot of fun, and Butch Downey won the round robin and got him a nice Mossberg Maverick 88 12-gauge pistol grip pump shotgun. Say that 5 times fast. Joel, pick it up, see who it is. We got a call come in. Let's see if it's pertaining to the show and not selling something. Welcome to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. Who we got on the line? Steve? How you doing? So you got a question for one of these gentlemen?
He didn't even answer me. He kept talking to Francis. She was driving. And I said, officer, he said, I heard you, but I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the driver. So I immediately shut up.
Probably, my guess is that he didn't think you were any threat to him. If he was talking to your wife about the infraction, the idea was that he didn't think you, or he didn't perceive you as any risk if someone's willing to tell him that they have a license and that you're in the passenger seat. He probably did the right thing, and maybe he should have been a little more polite about it. But he also handled the situation in a way that wouldn't get you alarmed either.
Okay, I think we lost the call, but Steve, thank you for that call. That kind of fit what I was saying here. If you're a passenger in the seat, so that was a perfect follow up. I appreciate the call. Anybody else? 254-697-6633. Today at 2:00 at Aaron's Gun Shop, we've got a license to carry class. Still seats available if you want to participate in that. It's $60 for a new one. If you've got a license already and you want a refresher, that's $40. And if you come in a group of 5 or more, it's half price, $30 a person. Remember though, if you come in a group of 5 and only 4 show up, it's $60 a piece. Now, we have in-home gun familiarization classes, $60 for 90 minutes. I come to you. I know some people can't make it. I've got lots of people ask me, can you come to me? And I just haven't been able to. Well, we've adjusted things. And if you set it up with me, we'll get you squared away, do in-house for 90 minutes there based on both of our schedules, that whatever works best for us. Seminars. If you give me groups of 5 or more, I usually set up seminars at the first part of the year. We've done it already. If you've got a group of people who want to do rifle, pistol, shotgun type of seminars in groups of 5, give me a call. We'll set that up. Ladies' night's coming up this Friday. Ladies get to shoot for free. Range time is free for the ladies. Sorry, guys, you're paying me. Now, I've got some exciting news. Starting July 1st, I will be having a second station, KRXT 98.5 FM. Saturdays starting at 8 o'clock. It'll only be a 1-hour show for now, from 8 in the morning till 9. Then I'll race here to Cameron and do this show live from 10 to 12. So if there's any people out there who want to help keep the program on the air, your sponsorships are very welcome. Your contributions are very welcome. That's the only way we stay on the air. People like Rick and Twin Pistols and ANC Firearms and people like that. That's what keeps me on the air. So if you like this show, it doesn't stay on for free, okay? That's what's coming up. So much more. Go to aaronsgunshop.com. Check out all the pages at aaronsgunshop.com. Please go to aaronsgunshop.com Facebook page. Like us on Facebook. Give us positive feedback. Give us a call here. Show your support in any way you can. And what we're going to do to catch back up on the clock, Joel, we're going to take breaks all the way to 11, and then we're going to have on our very own voice of law enforcement.
Capellino, Dodd, Krebs Law Firm
Hey,
in
that's
Cameron
you.
focuses on cases
Yeah, man.
involving personal injury litigation, including
That was
asbestos
good.
exposure
I
and
enjoyed it.
mesothelioma. At Capellino, Dodd, Krebs Law Firm, you are never treated like
What
a
time do you
number.
usually go to lunch?
Cases are accepted on a contingency basis, so clients do
9
not have to
o'clock.
pay
1
out of their
o'clock,
pocket.
okay.
You buy?
Contact Capellino, Dodd,
can.
Krebs Law Firm in Cameron today. Call 888-MESO-FIRM.
But yeah, I'd like to visit with you just a little while.
Aaron's Gun Shop is
I don't really
high
think I need to
cap
talk to somebody.
If you've decided to carry a handgun for
I'd like
self-defense,
for
you
Craig
better
Brown
know
to
what
be
you're
there
doing.
because he
If you don't, you better learn fast.
has
It's
been
not only
going to
fast,
trial
but
lawyer
thorough.
college more than
Aaron's Gun
Right.
Shop and high cap
I do the
fills the
squirrel
void
commercial
between
first
Johnny
at
Water
11,
and a
then
person
just
who's
intro.
properly trained in the proper handling
And then when
of
he's done, I need squirrel
Call
on
me
again.
at Betros at 254-697-4721
Chief, can you drag it out 20 minutes?
or email
Sure,
me
yeah.
at aaronsgunshop@gmail.com and set up a class or seminar to get you started on the road to proficiency with a firearm for self-defense. Go to our website, aaronsgunshop.com.
I'll tell you what, before you start
and visit the
squirrel,
High Cap Adventures page.
I
We
want
have
to get
seminars to
Rick
cover
on
most
real quick,
forms
and then
of
we'll do
firearms
squirrel.
training.
Okay.
Call 254-697-4721 or email me at aaronsgunshop@gmail.com to get more information on how to get started with your training. The time for games is over. Reality starts
let me
now.
intro it real quick.
aaronsgunshop.com.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. We missed a couple notes. I'm going to put Super Attorney Rick Dodd back on. Rick, what you have here?
Yeah, Capellino, Dodd, and Krebs, we do a lot of work with regard to products. One of the products we've been looking at recently has to do with weed killer Roundup. And there is some science out there that talks about non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So if you or anybody you know have been unfortunate enough to be diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, please give us a call. We're there to help and make sure that you get the respect you deserve.
Fantastic. And once again, how do they get a hold of you? What's the website they can do it? The best one?
Respectforyou.com.
Okay, very good. All right, let's hear from Squirrel.